All right, here we go. How's it going?
Oh, well.
All right, so I think you guys know my style a little bit by now. Some of you, hopefully more than last year when we did this. All right. So you're looking at Avodah Zorah 64b. All right, and we're going to be talking. I'm going to be talking a little bit about Ger Toshav today, and this is one of the key Makor sugyas in Avodah Zorah 64b. There's basically 4 places in Shas that deal very strongly with Ger Toshav. Everyone know what Ger Toshav is? Lightly, resident, alien, righteous, Gentile-ish, right? So in Shas, there's 4 places that the sugya is based out of. The one in front of you, Avodah Zorah 64b, Krisis 9a, Makkos 9a, and Yavamas 48b. Whenever you see Ger Toshav brought anywhere, I don't care where you're learning it, eventually it's going to come back to one of those 4 Gemaras. Now, again, the guys that have been learning with me may know my terminology a little bit. What are Iker terms? Yeah? Anyone? Iker terms? Kind of like, almost like the Webster's definition. So, for example, let's see if Rashi's got one. This one's a little bit different. But, for example, you might see Rashi a lot of times when it says, blah, 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 Ger Toshav, blah, blah, blah. Rashi will say, Ger ochel nevelas. What does that mean? Ger ochel nevelas. Anyone? So you look in Parshas Rei, chapter 14, verse 21. Right? It's going to say, blah, 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 right? Get into the context. And you give the nevela, what's nevela? Treif meat, right? Give it for free to the ger in your gate, or sell it to a nachri. What's a nachri? Huh? A non-Jew. But let's get into some Iker term definitions. How would I translate nachri?
Someone who was descendant of Noah?
No. Non-Israel. Non-Israel. So what is an Israel? Israel is, hey, I like Torah. What is a nachri? I don't like Torah. Right? Israel, I like God. What is a nachri? I don't like God. And Israel is... whatever Israel does, right? I am a born Jew, descendant of. A Nachri is therefore not a descendant of. There's no such thing, this is a big Kiddush I'm about to tell you. There's no such thing as a non-Jew, as you use that phrase, non-Jew, in the Torah. It doesn't exist. If it did exist, how would you call it? What would it be called? Ein Yehudi? Right? When you look at the Mishna Brura and a non-Jew comes up in Halacha, you would call it Ein Yehudi. That terminology is rabbinic. It doesn't exist in the Chumash. So what's another one? Goy. Goy is a rabbinic term. In the Chumash, you'll find it as a nation, not as a meaning of non-Jew or Gentile. Why don't these words exist in the Chumash? Because there's no such thing as a non-Jew in the Chumash. Lafib Shuto, meaning oral Torah reality. What is a Jew? What is Israel? According to Talmudic reality. Someone who abides by the first commandment of the 10 commandments. God took a people out of Avodah Zarah. Is that correct? The Jewish people are officially non-idolaters. Would you agree with that? We are brought out from Mitzrayim to serve God. Correct? So what's the inverse of that? Our Nachri friend is not that. God did not take him out of Avodah Zarah. So therefore, what is the Gentile or non-Jew in the Torah? And idolater. So there is Klal Yisrael, which is a totally separate category of human being, right? God made a nation, brought them out, and made them holy, sanctified them with mitzvahs. What is the opposite? An idolater. How do you call that in the Chumash? Nachri. So what do you call a Jew in the Chumash? Who are you guys in the Chumash? Huh? B'nei Israel. Huh? I don't know if it appears. Does that appear? Maybe once or twice, not common at least. B'nai Israel is the Jewish people. So when Moshe Rabbeinu will say, go tell the people, blah, 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 he's talking to B'nai Israel, Jews. Now again, I'm well aware that we don't always go by the Chumash. There's Talmudic reality. But we're asking the question, but remember the question was Rashi's Iker terms. Don't forget the question. So we have B'nai Israel, the Jewish people. Then you have the Nachri, the non-Israel. And the Nachri is an idolater. Can the idolater, the Nachri, get out of his condition of Avodah Zarah Or is he destined to forever be an idolater? What do you think? He can get out? How does he get out of that? Okay, so he can convert and become B'nei Yisrael, Ezrachi, or he can do 7 mitzvahs B'nei Noach. Right? So what would Rashi call that? What's the ikar of that? How would we define this guy? One of the definitions, again, when Rashi explains who is who and what is what, he's going to explain from the Talmud. That's where you get the Talmud brought into the Chumash. Meaning, when you read your Chumash, you're going to learn Rashi and the Chumash, correct? And what does Rashi do when he explains the Chumash? Is he writing from his own sources? Is he writing, hey, let me think about what I think a Nachri is? Right? You know this lesson. Copy, paste. So if I see Rashi explain Ger, Ocha Nevelas, did Rashi write that? No, he brought it from the Gemara. That's why it's called the Fi Pshuto. There's the Pshat from the Oral Torah, Torah Sheba'al Peh, brought into the Chumash, the Fi, Rashi's commentary. But remember, the Chumash isn't going to say that. It's going to say other things. A non-Jew, or better yet, an idolater, who comes out of idolatry, the Chumash will call it the Ger in your gate. Ger asher sharecha. Right? And then you're going to say, what is a Ger in your gate? Doesn't even sound Jewish, does it? This is the Ger in your gate. So Rashi will say, Ger oichel nevelus. Now it's starting to sound a little bit more Jewish, as in Talmudic. And you'll see that Rashi will say that, and let's just, off the top of our head, say, and Rashi will quote Avodah Zarah 64b, or whatever it is. One of the ways that you get out of idolatry, if you're a non-Jew, or in this case, an idolater getting out of idolatry, is he takes on himself to eat nevelas. Where do you get that from? Look in your papers. Right, go down to where it says, like right in the middle, you'll see the circle, and then the dalid, and then the word ezu, the beginning line. Alex, you got it?
Oh, there, got it. Yeah.
Go ahead and read me the brisa slowly, and you'll see where everyone follow along with Alex, and we'll hear what we're doing. This is like one of the main sources of Ger Toshav. Go ahead.
Ezu Ger Toshav.
Everyone look inside.
This is Ger Toshav. Kol shekiver alav B'nei Gimel Chaverim.
B'nei Gimel Chaverim.
Shelo la'avod avodat kochavim.
Divrei Rabbi Meir. So a Ger Toshav, who in this context, the Ger Toshav, he is fundamentally not a Nachri. Right? The Nachri would do Avodah Zarah. A non-Jew, we're using the term non-Jew for the sake of communication, is someone who goes out of idolatry before 3 Talmidei Chachamim, and he says, I reject Avodah Zarah. Right? So I was a Nachri, and now I am at least here, a Ger Toshav. In the Chumash, I would be the Ger in the gate, and a Jew would have a mitzvah deraisa to give me for free dead meat, non-kosher meat. It's the basis of to give sustenance to a righteous non-Jew. Right? Why the Torah chose to do it through meat, I don't know. I mean, we can speculate, whatever. There are reasons, but for the sake of whatever, you have a mitzvah to give for free the meat and sell it to a Nachri. Why can't I give the Nachri my meat? Any ideas? Does it really matter? Can I just give it to my friends, the Ger in your gate? And can I give it to a Nachri? Possibly, but there's a specific other mitzvah to not give free gifts to an idolater. So therefore, what is the Torah saying? You can sell it to the Nachri, but if it's not an idolater, not only can you give it to him, but you're dafka giving it to him. You're saying, I am giving you this free gift. Because there's no chashash of Avodah Zarah. So someone who rejects Avodah Zarah, you repay them or thank them by giving them nevela. It's like a big chesed to give the righteous Gentiles, so to speak. The Nachri doesn't get our grace. Right? One of the definitions of to not give the gifts and to not give them anything is don't be gracious to them. Why should you be? They're idolaters. So the Torah doesn't look kindly on the Nachri. Now, it doesn't mean we're rude and this and that to the Nachri. It just means we're not about to go out and giving them free stuff. Whatever you want to draw conclusions from that. For example, if a Nachri touches the wine or is involved with Jewish wine, it's Yayin Nesach, Stam Goy Oived Avodah Zarahu. What if he's a Ger Toshav? Does a Ger Toshav have a problem with our Jewish wine? No. the gezerah by the Rabbanim on wine only exists for an idolater. So stam goy ovid avodah zarahu, a regular goy is an idolater, someone who removes himself from idolatry, avodah zara, ger toshav, even Yishmoelim in this case fit the din of a proper non-idolater. Why? Because Islam is not considered an idolatrous religion. They're considered a heretical Noahide, and the gezerah doesn't exist on them. It's very B'nei Noach. It's not like we're going to go out looking for Muslims. But yet, in this country, who knows what the Heter Mechira is? Anyone? Shemitah year? So for the Shemitah year, you don't work the land. Long story short, how do you make the produce kosher? They would sell the land of Israel to a Ger Toshav, which would be a Muslim. Lowest common denominator, right? Because he's not an idolater. Thank God, the last Shemitah they used the Ger Toshav, a B'nei Noach, for the first time. And actually, Rav Lau of Modin is the one who brought it through. Him and Rav Ori Sharkey, they made a B'nei Noach, a Ger Toshav, and for the first time, they didn't use a Muslim. Rav Kook's based in this. It's not. This is why a lot of Charedim don't hold by the Heter Mechira, because they're using a Muslim to do it. So it's not exactly like the most lechachila thing in the world to do. But it works on the B'nei Noach level, because their religion says they're not idolaters. So the lowest level, Ger Toshav, it's not a Noahide. He's not a righteous non-Jew. It's a technicality because his religion officially doesn't serve idols. Okay? So again, to kind of go back around, when Rashi will talk about who is the ger and the gate, he will copy and paste from one of the sugyas, and they might call it someone who keeps the 7 laws. He might call it a ger ochel nevelas. And there's certain different ikarim from the makor sugyas that we'll bring from. Got it? Any questions so far? So now I'm going to tell you, yeah.
The Ger Toshav keeps Shabbos.
Oh, that's a great question. And at the end, ask me. And that's mamish like the point. And we're going to get there. I want to conclude there, right? So don't forget, I'm not blowing you off. That's mamish where we're going to go. So here we go. I'm going to tell a story. You guys want to hear a story?
Sure.
So I was going to tell you the Gemara and go through and bore you. And these are two B'nei Noach here. Jake is also one. And we're going to do Q&A after I'm done putting you through this year. And you can do Q&A with these guys and ask them questions. Does that interest you?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story of what happened today. Again, this is not planned. I had no idea this was going to happen. I had a whole share in mind, so lucky you. All right, so we have been touring around the last week or so, me and these guys, and there's a whole group here from America. This is Russell Kirk. He's from Waco, Texas. This is Jacques Kutzi from Cape Town, Australia, South Africa, and Jake from Kansas, Jake Fry from Kansas. And there's more people around. They didn't come here today. We started off this morning very early, around 4:15 in the morning, because we went up to the Temple Mount. So in order to get to the mikveh on time, you got to go to the mikveh, and to get a good spot in line, we wanted to be there by 6:30. So we got our good spot, and 6:30 comes. We're in the line, and bracing ourselves to go up. It was my second time going up. I went up a couple years ago. I had a pretty interesting experience back then. I remember being confronted by Muslims yelling their stuff, and I just had my game face on, trying to not show it, being intimidated by them, because they try to intimidate you up there. And this was only my second time, so I didn't really know what to expect. We go up, and because Jews can only go certain times, I guess we think that they pulled us to the front of the line because I'm a Jew, obviously. And the non-Jews, I guess, can wait because the Jews have to get up at a certain time limit. So me and the guys, we got up first thing. They came with us. And there were some other non-Jews also in the group, but it was mainly Jews. And there actually were no Muslims trying to intimidate or anything. It was pretty calm and quiet. Kind of made it a little bit boring, in my opinion, for the start of the trip. So we go up and we start, I don't know if you guys, anyone ever been to Temple Mount before? No? So just on a side note, when my Ger Toshav work raises a lot of questions. If there's actually a Ger Toshav today. That's like the question people ask. And the sefer I've written on this, just so you know, it's called Laws of Ger Toshav, which deals with all the halakhic questions. And it comes with a skama from Rav Moshe Soloveitchik. Because one of the main ingredients of the sefer is I translated part of a sefer from Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, Moshe's father. You know Aaron Soloveitchik, brother of Yosef, the Rav. So Rav Moshe gave me Haskama, and we worked on the translation together. And when I saw him on my last trip to Chicago, I asked him about, long story short, the idea of the Temple Mount came up. And he said that we don't go to the Temple Mount. A lot of people don't, because the Jewish people largely have accepted on themselves not to go up. It's one of those things, like, why don't we proselytize? Technically, you could argue it's not us to proselytize. It's like a Jewish thing. You don't have to ask, do we or don't we proselytize? We just don't. I mean, you can find a smachta for this, but are you committing an avera when you tell a non-Jew, hey, come convert? I don't know if I call it an avera, but we don't proselytize. Making converts. Go making someone convert to Judaism without doing the traditional push them away, right? So there's a lot of things that in the Jewish religion we do that are not necessarily a mitzvah or an avera. There's certain things we've accepted as a people. Obviously, one of the famous ones is having multiple wives to come from Gershom, right? So, and they're usually in very good taste, so it's not a reason to question it. But the Temple Mount is a very hot topic, as everyone knows. Rav Lau, as the chief rabbi position, has a stance against going up, and there are those that challenge that stance, and it's actually a very interesting controversy, I think, today. It's not about necessarily where you can go and can't go. It's one of the things that if they just open a blanket hector, right, everybody go up, then you will have people going into the Holy of Holies. That you cannot have happen. That for sure cannot happen. So it's there are groups that go up, there are rabbis that go up, and some rabbis are divided whether you go up or not. But the ones that say not to go up, it's because we accepted not to go up. And again, there are those that challenge that, right? But Ger Toshav is not one of those things that we have accepted just not to do. But there are those today that want the Ger Toshav to be one of those things that we don't do. Right? Once upon a time, kitnius was mutter, right? And then became a problem. So we accepted the Ashkenazim not to eat kitnius. So we accepted it. And then those that are trying to say today, we know, in the bags that they come in. So there's a lot of controversies in Klal Yisrael. Lamaisa, I'm of the opinion that, I don't know if you should go up, but I went up. I mean, I don't know if I want to make it into a whole ideological thing. I personally go up. That's what I do. I'm not against those that don't go up. But anyway, so it's my second time going up. So we're up on top, and we start going around. And again, nothing so major going on. And we get to a place where you can kind of sit on a wall of rocks. I'm talking like a stone wall. We sit down, and one guy in the group was kind of bugging me out. He was a little bit interesting kind of guy, rough rider. He was on his phone the whole time, and a little bit uncleanliness. It was a little bit rough with him, and he kept running into everybody. So I was a little bit frustrated. Trying to ask for a little bit of Yer Shemaim up there, So we get to a spot, and we're resting, and one Israeli comes up to me. He's like, you got to move. I'm like, why? He says, well, they'll throw rocks from over there. I'm like, I don't think anyone's throwing rocks at me. So now I got to move, just a little bit, disoriented. So I would say the group was mixed. There was some secular, there was some Mizrahi types. Mainly, there was about 3 or 4 Haredim, and one guy who's not a real Rebbe. Those older Haredi guys that have a little group of Talmidim, they act like a Rebbe. Now, there's a reason why I'm saying it like this. It's going to play into the story. So the guy takes it upon himself to come out in front of the group, and he is going to tell us all about what's going on in Hebrew. And these guys are saying, "What you saying? What you saying?" And I'm like, he's really not saying anything. It's kind of frustrating. He's like, "This is a very special spot." Yeah, we know it's a Temple Mount. This is where Hashem is. We know it's the Temple Mount, and it was just boring. And I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way. I thought, can't we have a profound moment on the Temple Mount? I mean, you can't daven. They confiscate your siddur, and you can't take anything up, which I thought was kind of funny because I have the entire Tanakh, a whole base midrash on my phone and an app. So if I really wanted to, I could have learned Torah Kul up there theoretically. They don't check that. But again, I'm just thinking it would be nice to have nice Divrei Torah up there. I don't even know if it's allowed. Because they're saying if you do anything Torah, we're kicking you out and arresting you. So I'm already thinking okay, nothing. And then if we're going to do something, at least make it something. Anyway, so that was frustrating. We move on. And I'm telling the guys, this guy just keeps giving really watered down stuff. It just bothered me. And now, this should not have been the story, okay? This should have been never told ever again. It would have been in my head, and that was the end of it. So then I think I told Jake, I said, okay, I can't take it. I just gotta do it. So I was like, I'm moving back into the middle of the group, and I knew the guy was behind, like the Rebbe type guy. And I looked at him, I said, what do you think? I said in Hebrew, right? So then it loses a little bit in the translation. I said, what do you think? Do you think the Arabs are Ger Toshav? Remember where we're at? We're on the Temple Mount, governed by Yishmaelim. So I said, Atachoshev Yishmaelim him Ger Toshav? Do you think the Ishmaelites are Ger Toshav? Now, why did I say that? I wanted to give him a little zetz. And the funny thing is, it's such a chiddush that the lowest common denominator, Ger Toshav, is a Muslim, right? So I know that. But most people don't know that. Nobody wants to hear that. But he was bothering me, and I thought, rile him up. So he says, no. And I said, yes. She did Betty Yeved, and I'm giving them the whole spiel. Now that everyone converges, and we have video of this. It's going to be up on Facebook. So they say you can take pictures of video. They encourage it. Okay, so we did. So everyone starts saying, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I said, yes. Ger Toshav, Yishmaelim, him Ger Toshav, Hachi Dagalamata. Yeah, Ken, the Betty Yeved, Nachon, Aval, Malaso Beheder Machira. Beheder Machira, Yishmaelim, Haim Hachi Dagalamata, Hechak Betty Yeved. Right? They're in the head. So they're like, no, but they're not righteous. They're not righteous. I said, no, I know. They're not righteous. So then we were walking around, and they're like half interested. They wanted to get out of the discussion. I pulled them in, and then they started saying, more about, okay, they wanted to fight. And then I said, one of the little Mizrahi guys says, what about the Yovel? There's always got to be one guy says, what about the Yovel? There's, Svei Dinim, there's Ger Toshav, it's all going in Hebrew. There's Ger Toshav Kashur to Yovel, right? There's some say that those that say there's no Ger Toshav today because there's no Jubilee today. So there's a very simple answer to that. There's two kinds of Ger Toshav from that perspective: those connected to the land of Israel and those not connected to the land of Israel. Totally separate Ger Toshav. And you'll say, then why does the Talmud use one word, Ger Toshav, for two separate things? Because that's what the Talmud does, right? Why is there Rava and Rabba? Why is there Rambam and Ramban? Right? Why is there one word that can be essence of brisk? Svei dinim. One word, two dinim. That's how God did it. So it is very confusing when you see Ger Toshav, and it may be this, it might be that, it might be this. So then the guy said, I said to him, okay, so you're saying there's no Ger Toshav today. What about Nevela? And he says, we give it to dogs. Can? Yeah? So we're not going to do a mitzvah deraisa by giving the Nevela for free to the Ger Toshav? Which is Shayach also outside the land of Israel and also for today. So once I went there, got him. Right? That's one of our favorite psukim because it's a mitzvah. It's written about in the Gemara. It's in the Shulchan Aruch. Right? Giving the nevela to the Ger Toshav, which where to Ger Toshav, someone who keeps 7 laws plus rejects avodah zarah, Ger Toshav. So then I got him, and he's like, okay, but they're not righteous necessarily. And I said, okay, nachon. No one said it's which we're talking about is a righteous Gentile. He said, well, where do we find a righteous Gentile today? I said, Jacques, the guy right behind you, righteous Gentile. He says, no, yeah? I said, yeah, nachon. I said, Jacques, do you keep the 7 laws? He says, yeah. And then I said, Jacques, do you reject shituf? Right? Not only do you not do avodah zarah, but you reject shituf. And here's where the Haredim all come in the story. They're like, wow. All of a sudden, the fight turns into smiles. They're like, Behemet, where are you from? So they started saying where we're all from. So I said, Jacques was bugging me for like weeks. He says, when we get to Sfat, or when we get to Israel, and I said, when we get to Sfat, he wants to do Kabbalah. What is Kabbalah? For Shita on your papers, right? Before Gimel Chaverim, reject Avodah Zarah and Shituf, right? And take on the 7 laws. So some say there's no Kabbalah today. Some say there is Kabbalah today. Some say it's Lav Dafka. So anyone that knows my method on things, I take lowest common denominator, right? The Arab Akum, Ger Toshav type thing. I'm saying you can do Kabbalah. It might not get you anything. We're not saying it's going to get you anything. But at least that person, between him and God, he has a proper Kabbalah. He has been at least witnessed, right? That he has rejected these things. It cannot be bad to stand before God and say, I have rejected shtus, right? So, and it does come out in halakha as well. Shabbos, by the way, is one of the nafkaminas. What's your name again? Hello? Hello? Yeah. What's your name again? What's your name again? I forget. Totally. So one of the most practical Hilchah Shabbos inyanim of Ger Toshav A Ger Toshav, one who has rejected Avodah Zarah, Afila B'shituf, look in Mishna Brura 304, that whole simon over there. If a goy lights a bonfire for me in my backyard, what is the penalty? What did I do? An Isser D'Oraisa or Isser D'Rabbanan? Isser D'Rabbanan. Because the Torah told me to rest my ger and not my akum, or not my nachri. So it's a shvus. You cannot have a goy do a malacha for you. What if a ger toshav does a malacha for you? Mamish goes and lights a bonfire for me by my command. It's as if I did it. It's an Isser D'Oraisa. So that's the one place where it comes practically. Today,
They say usually you're not supposed to keep Shabbos.
that he's not. He's breaking malacha. If you look in Creases 9,
I'm saying, is he allowed to not do anything?
that's the thing that we're going to get to later. But the point is that he can break malacha one of three ways, not your case. But he has to be mindful not to do malacha for me. So that's one case. So I'm saying the Kabbalah does at least that. At least that. So then when I said to Jacques, do Kabbalah. I said to the three, the Rebbe and the two Talmidim, I said, you guys want to be a Beit Din? They said, yeah. So Jacques stands there, does Kabbalah, and he does the whole thing. They say, Makabel. So then Russell goes, Makabel. And the whole group does Kabbalah on the Temple Mount. So the whole day, which started with a little bit of boredom, and then a little bit of agitation, and then a little machlaikis, ended on the hard bias with like 4 or 5, how many was it? 1, 2, 3, 5 non-Jews getting and doing Kabbalah on hard bias by a base din, not including me. So you can't say it's like I wedged myself in there, right? And why do I mention like the idea of the Haredim? Because you can see it was 3 kosher Jews that took upon themselves to do a Kabbalah on hard bias. So it actually happened. And then afterwards, we went into the old city. And when Russell and his wife went shopping, and then we went to the Chorvashol. So I was going to prepare for tonight's shiur. I was going to do the Bior Halacha on 304, because I've been working on it, which I kind of gave a little bit today through this. And one of the guys who was in the based in was in the Chorvashol, right? What do they call those guys? The Zober, what do they call them? The Yerushalayim? Zoberman. One of his guys. So we saw him in there, and I'm like, yeah, Shekai, thank you. And then we went over to the Sugya again in the Chorvashol with him. So it was very interesting, a little bit of a confirmation. So that's the story. So through that, you can see a little bit how Ger Toshav works and this and that. Where are we on time? How long have we gone? What's that? 5:10. So we've gone 40 minutes or so. So we're in our 20 minutes. Let me answer your question. Ready? Yeah.
I'm out of space, just so you know.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not. Here's the answer to the question. So this is what got me going the last couple of days thinking into this. So we'll focus on Tuli? Yeah, Tuli's question. Can a non-Jew keep... Wait, yeah, turn that off. Can a non-Jew keep Shabbos like a Jew is what you're asking. Right? So everybody would say, what's our party line answer? We have to say without even thinking about it? No, that's not the party line answer, no. A non-Jew who keeps Shabbos...
Not keeping Shabbos?
Who's keeping Shabbos is Chayev Misa. Yes?
Party line?
That's a party line.
I understand.
Huh? So the first thing is that literal or is it B'yedei Shemayim? Is it literal or B'yedei Shemayim?
Doesn't matter.
Huh?
Doesn't matter.
Does it matter?
Yeah.
We're going to take a guy out and shoot him in the head versus saying, you shouldn't do that. God forbid, Big difference. Huh?
Today we're not going to do any of that. So.
Today we don't have a bait then.
Meaning for Allah Lamais doesn't matter.
Well, I still would like to know if a bunch of Jews are willing to shoot me in the head for doing that. So the answer is no, it's not literal. Thank you. It's B'yedei Shemayim. Then you get into as far as why is it written so to the head-ish, right? So there's those that say it's Gezela. They're stealing Jewish property rights. Some say it's making a new religion. The other one is if they keep Shabbos the way they think they do, and they're not really meant to keep Shabbos, then there's a klal in halacha that, have you ever heard the thing, harsh, it's easier to say it in a bad translation, harsh like thorns on Israel or Gerim. You've heard that before? It's a klaw in halacha, right? Gerim are harsh on us. Why? And this is Beferish in the Rambam. Because we, as a people, do what non-Jews do. That's why assimilation, everything is such a harsh thing. We just do. So if we see them being Machal Shabbos, some, your secular friends, but see, we can put lights on, no problem. He does it. And then we'll go and do it, and then we're guilty. So if they keep Shabbos wrong, thinking that they should be keeping it, we will imitate it, and then we will be Machal Shabbos. So those are the various reasons why they can't keep Shabbos, to where we say Chayav Misa. Now, you're looking at Avodah Zarah 64b. Yeah.
Can I finish the thing you said before?
Mm.
You said, right, like, we don't have, Goy can't commit malacha for you.
Mm.
So my friend, when I was growing up, had a maid, she was from the Philippines, right? And she made the best matzo ball soup, better than anyone else in all of Wisconsin, right? But she did it on Sunday, she did it on Saturday morning.
Okay.
So it was like fresh for Shabbat lunch.
Right.
So that wasn't okay to eat?
I'm guessing she probably was not taking Kabbalah on the 7 laws.
Okay.
Yeah, so she would be a goy, and I would say if she did bishul mamish, they would be oiver on amir la'akum, right? So you can't. It's a rabbinic problem for them to cook for you. So then there's something called waiting till after Shabbos a certain time, or it's forever forbidden. Then you would not be able to eat the soup on Shabbos, all the more so after Shabbos.
All right. What about possibly if she cooked it on Friday and then she reheated it Saturday?
Reheating it, it's an interesting question. So there's something called, for the sake as my little lexicon in my brain, soup, right? Call it just regular soup. So can you put soup on a blech Shabbos morning? No. But there is a hector how to do it. How do you do it? Have a goy do it.
Oh, okay.
So a goy can do it. You're not supposed to do it. One of the biggest klalim in Hilchos Shabbos is whenever you're breaking Shabbos, let's say for Pekuach Nefesh or whatever it is, you always break Shabbos the minimal way. So if someone's, let's say, sick and needs to get to a hospital, and for whatever reason the Jew needs to go with them. So should the Jew drive the car, or do you get a goy to drive the car? You get a goy to drive the car. You always break Shabbos the most minimal way possible. You don't say, hey, thank God, Pekuach Nefesh, now we can watch the Super Bowl. Although that's on Sunday. Whatever.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah. So when you are even doing something beheter, meaning there are those that say it's bishul, but that's a machmir position. The Mekilin say it's not bishul. So Lamai say it's technically not bishul, but we treat it like bishul. How do you know that? How do you know it's not really bishul? Because if it was really bishul, the goy would be doing a malacha for you. And the halacha is you ask a goy to do it. So again, you do things in the most mutter way possible, because it should not come to look like you are cooking. If a goy is cooking, that's what goyim do on Shabbos. They cook. Jews don't. All right, back to our discussion. We have our brisa, Ezehu Ger Toshav. Now, if you look at the second day, follow with me, right? We already went through that. It's the first day. Forget that. Move on. The Chachamim Amrim. Kol shekibel alav sheva mitzvahs shekiblu aleim B'nei Noach. That's the second day. You understand that? Who said that? Chachamim. What they say?
Anyone who keeps the
7 laws. Just so you know, the Machaber usually is going to take the first 2 days, and we're going to call that Stam Ger Toshav. Meaning, if he rejects Avodah Zarah, a field b'shitiv, that means 1 out of 7 mitzvahs he actually has Kabbalah on. Now, it should go without saying he probably doesn't transgress the other 6, right? Meaning, you know he's going to do the 6, and he's going to attest on the most important of the 6, or the 7, because we want him to go from Nachri to Ger Toshav. But the Rabbanim are going to say we paskin on the middle day. Why? Because we want to be sure you keep all 7. But that's not to say just on the 7. There's a little bit of an extra emphasis on the Avodah Zarah, because remember, We're not trying to make Noahides, according to this. We're trying to make non-idolaters. Big difference. Big difference. A lot of the Noahide organizations think we're out there making Noahides. And you can. There is such a concept of making a Noahide. But there's another concept called making Ger Toshav. Right? And a lot of people don't know that. So a Noahide would be, you have a Nachri, and you see him on the street, you say, hey, take this card from Lubavitch. Keep the 7, right? And then he goes out from Nachri, he becomes a B'nei Noach, he understands he has an obligation of the 7. That's really the idea of becoming a Noahide. But there's no Kabbalah involved. Should he become careful in the 7? Really careful. Like, I want to really do the 7 even like a Jew. Meaning a Jew's commanded against Shituf, not a Noahide. So a Noahide says, man, I want to reject Shituf. Now it's room for Kabbalah, and he's entering into the Ger Toshav status. And has nothing to do with the land of Israel or Yovel. All it means is that Kabbalah that a conquered person would have to make should they live in Israel in a time of Yovel. Right? That Inyan can apply anywhere, anytime. It just means that the nafkamina of going to Israel, yada yada, doesn't come attached to that. It doesn't matter. So the second day we said was 7 laws. Now go to the third day, and we have Acherim, Oimrim, Elu lo ba'u lechlal ger toishiv, ela ezehu ger toishiv, ze ger oichel nevelis, shekibel alav lekayim kol mitzvahs amoris b'Torah, chutz mi'isir nevelis. Got it? He eats nevelas, and a very strange shita. What does it mean? He accepts all the mitzvahs of the Torah, obviously except for not eating nevelas, i.e. he eats nevelas. Why does the third day from Acherim, why is he accepting all the mitzvahs of the Torah, and why are we not freaking out over that? It's a rhetorical question. Yeah. So, on a side note, when you look in the Rambam, Hilchos Melachim 10:9 and 10:10, a goy sheshevis or learns Torah chayev misa. We know what that means. No bullets involved, right? Then the very next halacha, but a B'nei Noach that wants to keep any of the other mitzvahs, kehilchaso, kedei lekabel schar, we don't hold him back. The first question you need to ask yourself: is there a difference when the Rambam changes from goy to B'nei Noach? So there are those that will say yes, there were those that will say no. And that is not a machlokes. Meaning, Rav Moshe Feinstein talks about 10:9 and 10:10 in regard to an akum. Because he's going to be talking about an akum doing shchita. Can an akum do shchita? No. Akum are not commanded in mitzvahs. That's called killing a cow. It's not called shechting a cow. It's not kosher. You can't eat it. It's nevela. By that right, Rav Moshe tells you an akum doesn't do mitzvahs. They're not commanded in mitzvahs. They did not receive the Torah. But if they did shechita for themselves, can he get schar for that? He does the shechting. He learned in a B'nei Noach school of shechita, whatever it is. Can he get schar? Lamaisa, it did everything like a mitzvah. Right knife, right place, right everything. Just happens to be a pasha goy. And he wants to know, can I get schar? Rav Moshe answers the question. The answer is, there's no schar. He can do a mitzvah. And then it gets complicated how he does it. Is it making a religion? Basically, if it occurs, he can be like, hey, I got hungry for a steak, and I happen to have this shechita knife here. I did the shechita. Yay, I did it. I learned about it once, and now I did it. So he does not get schar, but he does get schar Talmud Torah. Since he learned it, and he learned it to do it, and he did it, he gets the schar for having done it and having learned it, but mainly having learned it. So then the Rambam is saying, yeah, if it's like that, then they can theoretically do every mitzvah. But it's not considered a mitzvah like you would consider a mitzvah. A Jew can't eat that meat. A Jew can't rely on their mitzvahs. So that's the third shita here. So he accepts on himself to be a Ger Toshav. And it's not the same Stam Ger Toshav in the first two. We're going to call that a certain type of righteous Gentile. The third one is he's saying, I eat nevelas, which is another way of saying, I'm not a Nachri. Because that's the same pasuk, right? A Nachri is sold the nevela. The Ger Toshav is given nevela. I don't want to be a Nachri. I want to be the guy who gets it for free. So I accepted on myself to eat nevelas. That type of Ger Toshav, he wants to do all kind of mitzvahs. And he does them. That's your Rambam 10:10. But they're not kosher mitzvahs. Right? So now he's a Ger Toshav. And he's going to live in the Chatzer across from me. And I'm a Jew. And he's a Ger Toshav. Now at the bottom of your page, Avodah Zarah 64b, this is where the Chiddush is, the whole page is one thing. Can you do Eruvin with your Ger Toshav neighbor so that you can carry from Chatzer to Chatzer? Ravashi, what do you think? The answer is no. He is a total goy vis-a-vis the Eruv. He would have to mavatel his reshus. He says, now it's mikasa sukasa. My house is your house. And now you can carry. Certain things, Ger Toshav, are mamish akum. Right? You can charge them interest. So the question becomes, once I'm a Ger Toshav and I'm not a Nachri, and I can take on all the mitzvahs of the Torah except for Nevela, and I'm still not a Jew, that's the meaning of that. I can take on almost everything. Am I Jewish? No. You're Ger Toshav. But I'm not a Nachri. So sometimes I'm not a Nachri, and sometimes, even though I'm not a Nachri, I'm still kind of a Nachri, i.e. the Erev, i.e. Ribbis. That's why you need the third daya of the Acherim to tell you, even though he's a Ger Toshav, you cannot rely on his mitzvahs as a Jew. So the Chafetz Chaim in the Biur Halacha, Tuli, here we go, is going to ask the famous question in the Biur Halacha 304 Hilchos Shabbos. The Magin Avraham has a very strange shita. And it says, what if, just as an Eved Kanani takes on the mitzvahs of a woman, here's part of your answer, Tuli. An Eved Kanani, who's called a Ger Tzedek in Yevamos 48b and is not a Jew, takes on mitzvahs of a woman, he is chayav to keep Shabbos like a Jew. He is not Jewish. So we know there's a concept of a type of non-Jew that keeps Shabbos like a Jew. And that is the Ger and the Gate, the Ger Chag Hashem Sherecha of the Aseres Adivos. So the Magin Avram says, when we don't have slavery, like today, there's a shita that we do have a sachir, right? When you go to the hotel, those people, if they were a Noahide hotel worker, he's a sachir, he keeps the 7, he cannot light the incandescent light bulb for you, or it's an Isser Deraisa. See how much the laws can change. Hilchos Shabbos changes when there's a goy versus a ger. So the Magin Avram says, what if a sachir, your hotel worker, took on himself at the time of his Kabbalah all the mitzvahs and he can keep Shabbos like a Jew? Hear the question? I'm a sachir, I work in the hotel, I reject shituf at my Kabbalah, I'm taking on 7, and at the time of my 7, I take on all the mitzvahs like an Eved, but I'm not an Eved. And I have to keep Shabbos like a Jew. So the Biur Halacha says, how is that possible? And it looks like it's the third daya, but it's not. The Chafetz Chaim draws from the third daya, and he says, just like in the third daya of Avodah Zarah 64b, a Ger Toshav can accept all the mitzvahs in the Torah, but it's not legit. Remember, you cannot eruv with him. Those are not real mitzvahs you can rely on. So he says, but when we have the middle daya, I took on 7 at the time of my Kabbalah. At the time of Kabbalah, if I had in mind to take on all the mitzvahs, then I could take on Shabbos and keep Shabbos like a Jew. So that's how the Chafetz Chaim comes to the answer of answering up the Magin Avraham. Remember, there's two kinds of Ger Toshav, the third day and the first two. The third one is just I eat nevelas. And I do Rambam 10:10, and you can't rely on my mitzvahs. Those are not even called mitzvahs. But the Stam Ger Toshav, the first two, I am relied upon, meaning you can rely on me to not do malacha for you, or it's an Isser Deraisa, right? I took real Kabbalah. And if I do malacha for you, it's an Isser Deraisa. No one will disagree with that. So Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach asks on the same thing. Where would we find such a Kabbalah? And that's what everybody asks on the Chafetz Chaim. Where would you come to such a Kabbalah you would take on more? And the answer is when you're in the middle of Kabbalah, to become a righteous Gentile, so to speak, right? Rejecting Shituf, taking on the 7, they could theoretically take on all the mitzvahs, and the difference is in the third day where he took on all the mitzvahs, that's called Kabbalah, but not Gerus. The first two, which are Stam Ger Toshav, is Kabbalah with Gerus. And there's a shita of a half conversion, Gerus Chutzoyin, but it only exists for a conquered people or an Evid. So the Magi and Avram found that one loophole in the din where it's not half Gerus, not conquered person, not a slave, not Stamazoi, where he can do a Kabbalah and keep Shabbos like a Jew. Then, should they do it? No. Because, first of all, not many people know it. The Daya doesn't say it in the Gemara. Now, could they do that Kabbalah? Technically. Whereas the third Shita, by Erevin, they would follow Krisus 9a, Ger Toshav, which you break Shabbos one of 3 ways. Like Yantif, what do you do on Yantif? Can you cook on Yantif? Yeah. So they can cook like we do on Yantif. Chol Moed, do you go to business and do business work on Chol Moed? No, so they choose to not work on Saturday in terms of money. Or Yom Chol. To them, it's a regular day. Everything they do, they smoke, they write, they do business. But it's Shabbos for them, meaning they think about God, they talk to God, they learn Torah, but they do all malacha. And what they're conscious of is not doing malacha for you. So, yes, the Chafetz Chaim did find a way. Tosfos mentions it also, because it can't be a convert that keeps Shabbos. Because it's obvious in Pshita that a convert keeps Shabbos. So a convert is considered Izrachi, like a native Jew. They can marry a Jew, produce a Jewish child. The Chiddush of the 10 Commandments, Gercha Shivasharecha, which most people would say only when they receive Bris Milah, like an Eved Kanani. Because a non-Jew can receive Bris Milah, but they don't necessarily take Tvila, Mikvah, and they remain Ger Tzedek non-Jew. These are shitas that are not so common. I don't even think anyone does them today. I certainly wouldn't recommend it. But Al-Pi Din, do they exist? Yeah, a lot of things exist. It's not what Noahides are about. It's not what Noahides do. So I'll conclude on that note. Standard Noahide today is, again, the review is, I got a Nachri over here, and a Jew goes up to him and says, he hands him a picture of the Rebbe, and says, you want to keep the 7 laws? And he says, yeah, 7 laws. He's now a Ben Noach. I am with the 7 laws. Then he does that for a while, and he says, I want to do more. Isn't it natural to want to do more? So he wants to take the 7 laws serious. He enters into Ger Toshav. He rejects Avodah Zorah Ifilu B'Shituf. He takes on the 7. He moves into the third Shita, where he does other mitzvahs, but they're not kosher. They're halakhically, he tries to do it al pi halacha, and when it occurs for him to do it, we don't have to hold him back. He has a heter to do it, says Rav Moshe. Then again, in the second day, if he wants to add to his Kabbalah, technically he can. I certainly wouldn't advise that. And again, it would be on the Beis Din to attest to that. So that's where the question always comes down to Kabbalah. Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is going to ask, where would you come to such a Kabbalah? So you'd have to have a Beis Din that would want to bring a non-Jew to that type of Kabbalah. You're not going to find it. And if a Beis Din wanted to, that's on them. I always tell people, like, they would say, what if we want to do this mitzvah or that mitzvah? So that the chiyuv is on the rabbi of the shul. If there's a rabbi that wants, number one, B'nei Noach in his congregation, that's his choice. If he doesn't want it, then go away. No. If he wants them there doing this mitzvah, that mitzvah, that's the Rav's choice of what is normal for his shul, just like with Jews, right? Some yeshivas allow Kabbalah, like mysticism, to be learned. Others don't. I remember in Sfat, my yeshiva, the Skvera Hasidim have a big deal with Rabbi Nachman. They can't stand Breslov. So when the Skvera Rebbe would come, we have to remove all the Breslov Sfarim from the base midrash. So everyone's got their nourishkeit a little bit, you know? Again, the Chavetz Chaim, the Biur Halacha, the Chiddush of it is a lot of Chiddushim in it. Number one, he found out how the Kabbalah exists, but what people are confused about, and I'll end on this note, they think that when non-Jews do mitzvahs, they're thinking it's the Biur Halacha's Kabbalah to do it like a Jew. It isn't. That is the Shita of Chochamim. The Rambam 10:10 is the Shita of a Cherim, i.e. the one that you don't do Erevin with. The Shita of doing Kabbalah, where they can even do Erevin, no one is gonna say, hey, let's do a Kabbalah for that level. But don't be confused and say that there's no Kabbalah, because that same Shita is how they do Kabbalah to be a righteous Gentile, i.e. to not be a Nochri, to be a Ger Toshav, which a Nochri doesn't do. A Nochri does Avodah Zarah, he doesn't. They don't do the 7, he does, and that's their Kabbalah. To go beyond that, I think is ill-advised. I would never recommend it. The Chavetz Chaim brings it. Rav Chaim Kanievsky brings it as a Yesh Omrim. Why? Because it is a valid Shita. But when you hear about non-Jews doing mitzvahs, they're not doing it Lefi Geiris. They're doing it Lefi the third Shita, which is Rambam 10:10. And no, you cannot be samach on their mitzvahs. They don't keep Shabbos like a Jew. They do it like Krisis 9a. And their Talmud Torah is only if to do a mitzvah, which is not considered a mitzvah, and they don't get schar for a mitzvah, they have schar Talmud Torah.